Welcome to Kent District Library streaming programs. I'm Laura from the Comstock Park and Plainfield branches. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight for today's program about deadbolts and doorknobs with home repair services. KDL is archiving many of these programs, and you can find programs like this on our KDL Facebook and YouTube pages. Let's bring in Mike. Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us. We're glad to be here, and we greatly appreciate KDL for being able to reach out and with home repair services, reach out to all the viewers to do some of those DIY handyman special kind of projects at home. So
Absolutely.
This evening,
let's kick it off.
Okay. So everyone, this evening, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about deadbolts up here and the doorknobs down here. A lot of times we have a doorknob at home and, you know, maybe it's not just right. Something's wrong with it, but we're not sure what to do about it. A lot of times what it can be, I don't know if you ever have one go to open the door and it's just like the knob is loose. Well, there are two screws on a doorknob. There's this one has one up here and one down here. And well, I'm going to actually just loosen this up. I'm going to loosen those screws, and then you can see that this moves up and down. So if you ever grab your doorknob and it's moving up and down, all it is really is just tightening two screws. Maybe yours has screws on the side, but they're the same thing. If you can see those two screws, just snug them all up, and now it no longer moves up and down on this. So that's a quick fix. But maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe it's not latching properly. Maybe it's a lot of times they drag. You know, meaning that it doesn't. You know, you have to jiggle it, or the bolt, which is this part right here, doesn't move in and out freely. So that's when you just want to change the whole thing. It's actually quite a simple task, and we're actually going to take this one off. We're going to take this deadbolt off too, because maybe you'd want to change that too. A couple of things I just wanted to share with you about them before we do that is I have a package here. And so you need a doorknob, right? It's an entry lock. They actually have these if you have a front door and a back door, we all do, and you want them to match, same key, you can get these so that they're keyed alike. And you can just go either to a lock place, someplace that does locks, and they can key them for you. A hardware can key them for you, or change the tumblers on the inside, or you can buy them actually. You just look at the code number on the end, so if you get a match. They'll tell you right that it's keyed alike or not. So that would be the package, and inside of there is the handle, you know, the center of it, and then the bolt part of it right there. So that would be inside of every pack. But this one, it has a deadbolt. So you would get a pack that's just a little bit bigger. So you have, there's the door handle, and over here is the deadbolt. Again, I would get mine so that they're keyed alike. So if you get these together, then the same key goes to both of them. I don't know if you have, but I know I have in the past is have one key for a deadbolt and another key for the handle set down below. Simplify life, right? So to take a handle off, right, we're going to just need to remove that. We went to the store, we bought our handle. And again, what I said was that it's just those two screws right there. So if I take both those screws out, and I'm hoping you can see this okay. They're a fine thread screw, so they turn a ways. Come up on top and take that one out. And then, well, as I took those two screws out, and you see, and then I just pulled that apart. It just comes apart, right? So on the inside of this, you see on this side of it, there's a square hole there, and on this side, it has that square type shaft with this part going down the middle, which is actually the lock. So you can see how that just goes together. And I just pull it apart. So that's all that is right there. So I'm going to set that aside. And now you see this part is in there, right? So I'm going to take that off just by removing 2 screws right here. And then that piece right there just comes out. And that's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it together here. So here, this is all it is, just these 3 pieces here, right? There's the inside, the outside. And when this goes together, I'm going to hold this, try to get this on an angle so it looks good to you. So here is the bolt that goes into that hole. And then this is the part that has the square shaft on it. There's a key slot, so this is the outside. So I just want you to kind of see how that goes together. It just goes in there like that. Right? It just goes in like that. And you can see over here there's a groove that this just locks right into the side of that. And then this part then will slide right over top of it. And you might have to turn it back and forth a little bit, but you can see how that self lines right up. You can't put it together wrong. There's only one way it'll go together. And now when it turns, you can see how that part moves, the bolt moves in and out, right? So yeah, it is actually quite simple. So I'm going to take that off, set this down. And one of the things I want to mention to you is that when you go to buy a lock set, you'll see on there on the lock set that 2 3/8 and 2 3/4 back set is what it's called. And what that means is how far is it from the edge of the door to the center of this hole. So if I put my tape measure across there, the center of that hole is 2 3/4. All right, so I know that I would need one with a 2 3/4 inch back set. Typically, when you find one that has a 2 3/8 back set, it means it's closer to the edge. It's because the deadbolt is 2 3/8. This is 2 3/8, and typically it's when you got a big piece of glass in the door, and then it just gets a little bit farther away from the glass that's around here. So when you see it 2 3/8 and 2 3/4. The great thing about it is, I remember back in, I'll just say the early 80s, when you buy one of these lock sets, when you buy something like this, it had 2 bolts in there. One of them was a 2 3/8 and the other one was a 2 3/4. So you have 2 for the handle and 2 for the deadbolt. So they determined in time that there was a waste, and what they did is they found a way to adjust these. So like you can see this groove right here, and you watch when I turn this, it came in. So now it's actually 2 3/8 from the center of that to here. And when I back it out, now it's at 2 3/4. So these are adjustable. So just the reason why I'm telling you that is, yes, they're adjustable, but you're going to see that and wonder, well, what does that mean? That's what it means, 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. And then as far as for this handle set that I was showing you a few minutes ago, they make these. So when that goes in there, you'll see that again, this is square, and this goes in here like this and lines up. But you see that this is set at 2 3/4. It could also go over to 2 3/8 and be on this side of it, right there. So this is in the 2 3/8 side. And watch when I turn it. It still works. It's elongated, a rectangle, and both of them actually work independently. Same thing. You can see the parts move in there. All right, so it's universal. So it's not a worry. So just like we open the pack and we have all of our parts laying out. You're going to have, again, you're going to have the handle and the bolt, and then you're going to have a little bag that's got those screws in it that I had there. And then there'll be, you know, these short screws like this. Up there it is. Okay, short screws like that are in there. And then this longer one, which I mentioned, that's a fine thread, so that holds the one side to the other. And you lay them out. Oh, and you also have 2 screws for the strike plate. So a little bit about the strike plate, which is right here. So when that door closes, we all seen these before. It just goes right into. Hope you can see that right here. You can see that right here is a strike plate. So I'm going to take that off so you can see that that's actually not too bad a project either, or a task either to take off. I'm hoping you can see this. So here at Home Repair Services, before the COVID came around, we would have classes in this room right here. We call it our Fix-It School. And every Saturday at 10 o'clock, we would have a free class on many topics. One of them would involve this kind of the door type stuff. And what's so awesome about the classes is they're hands-on. So anyone that would want to be able to actually physically do this, not just have me talk about it, we talk about it, but then can I try that? Well, absolutely. We encourage the hands-on because that's what's going to give us the confidence to know that we can take that home and apply that skill. So I took that off, and there's a hole there. Hopefully you can see the hole right there. And one of the things about the strike plate is, so I'm going to hold this up, and this is the bolt in the door, remember? And this is the strike plate. So when you close your door at home, this bolt, you've seen it happen many times, closes and opens or compresses and then goes into there. Now, if you ever have a door at home or going through a door, family, friends, whatever, and you close a door and it seems a little bit loose yet, like it's not really latched all the way. So you give it just a little extra push and you hear a second click. And then, okay, now there's no leg coming around it, so now it's good. The thing is that particular door would need to be adjusted because it's the strike plate is in the wrong position. When you look straight onto this bolt right here, you'll see that there is this small part here that moves independently of the bolt. Now, when I push on the bolt, they both go back, right? But that one will move by itself and be held back. The thing is when the door, patient with me, I'm doing this in reverse. So when the door comes across that hole and the bolt goes into there, that is all that's supposed to be in there, just that right there. And then, so at home, let's say you have it right there and it's like, well, the door's still loose. And when I say you give it that little extra push, and then the little one goes in there. So that's a poorly adjusted door right there. That is the one where if somebody wanted to, we've seen this on TV, you can slip a card around there and compress and get into a home. The thing is this little one, when it goes in there, is supposed to be held back. So I'm going to do this one more time. And now just the big one is in there. And if I was to try to slip something around there and compress that big one won't move. It won't go in. I'm pushing it and it won't go in. So now we give it that door that little extra push and the little one goes in. All I did is just push it in there. And now, get my finger over there. Now they both go in. So that's where someone could come in along the side and work something in there because they can compress both of those. When it's just the big one, again, backwards, it won't compress. All right. So what I'm going to do is show you a picture here of side by side, so you can see. Hopefully, you can see the difference right there. I'm going to hold that still, so you can see that this one over here, that's the door that was, you know, a little loose. So we had to give it that extra push so that comes in. The one over here, just the big one is in there, so that one is more secure. This one right here. All right. So what has to happen in this picture again is this strike plate that I was talking about. This strike plate on this opening right here actually needs to move back so it lines up with the front edge of that bolt. All right. Secure, not secure. All right, so now let's put that handle set back on there. Now we talked about it, or I talked about it enough, right? So here's the bolt. All it is put this in here, and you already have holes there, and you should be able to just line it right back up right where it's at. So other than my talking and explaining a lot of things, this actually only takes minutes. So on any given weekend, just, take an hour on a Saturday and take that thing off and put it back together with a new one. So that's all. Put that in there, and there. So that's the bolt. And now we've got the key. And another thing about these is when you put a key in. When you put this in place, because I can put it in this way, or I can put it in this way, right? So I don't know if you can see that, but the key is actually will go in upside down at the top. So if I put that in like that, that's when actually moisture can get in there and go down into the tumblers, and in the wintertime freeze up or also corrode them. So when you install it, put it so that when you put the key in, the notches on the key are upwards, because now the tumblers are upwards, and they're not going to get moisture sitting on them in there and freeze up on you in the wintertime. All right. So this way, upside down with it. Notches up. So I'm going to just slide that right in. You can see that slide right in there, just like I did when it was out and open. And then I'm just going to hold it, and I put my couple fingers on this side and just kind of grab the door now. And then I take the other side and put it up on there, and it's back together again. So now those holes are already lined up with each other. So I can just put my thumb on this handle and put that screw in there. And I know my hand's in your way, but maybe you'll be able to see better on the bottom one. So I started that one, and then just take this screw and put it up in this other one. And if it feels like it's not grabbing just right, just give everything a little jiggle, and that screw will start threading right in that hole. And then once I have that, then I just take the Phillips screwdriver and just start turning away. Now you could use a cordless drill. For this, I'm one who more likes to use just a screwdriver, because I have more feel of that as it tightens up. Cordless drill, you can run it in there, but you still have to get that screwdriver out, because you want to have the feel of how much it snugs. You don't want to over tighten it with a cordless screwdriver. You just snug them up real good, and then snug these up. And again with these screws, they're going into wood. So if I was using a cordless drill, you know, maybe I go too far too fast, and then the screw goes in and spins out. Now the wood is all frayed, and now the screw won't stick in there. So there's actually a trick for doing that too, to fix the stripped out screw hole, and I'll come back to that. So you I'm going to show you something to do that I did that's wrong here. Is I put the bolt in backwards. So earlier, remember I said you can't do it wrong? Well, the bolt could go in backwards, but it will line up perfectly. So I just put that bolt in backwards. So I'm going to undo this. Somebody probably caught that before I did. But you know what's good about having an oops is do we know how to make it right? No matter what it is. So I guess what you get is you see me do this twice. So, you know, sometimes the second time around we see something more, right? Actually, maybe I should point out the reason why is backwards is because that has that taper on it, right? And when that comes closed, that taper is supposed to hit the door jamb over here. So all that is just rotate it. There we go. I think some of the best medicine is if we can do something and go, ha, and laugh at ourselves a little bit. There, now that's better. So we got the key on the bottom so that the notches will be up. Put that there, right there. And while I'm just holding this just on both sides, so it just stays together better and able to tighten down the screw more freely. Then once I get that one drawn up, I can just let go of it. There, see now, when that would come in there, it's closed. That's where it belongs, right? So now I want to show you about the actual strike plate now a little bit. I'm going to try to move this a little closer because remember how I said that the strike plate needs to be lined up so that when it's closed, it's like that, not like that. If it's like that, that means the strike plate in this opening here needs to go back farther. Okay. So what I want to show you is how I determine where the strike plate goes. Close the door, and then I also want to turn my deadbolt to make sure it moves freely. And now I know because those two are together, that's the depth. It doesn't move. That's where it belongs. So what I do is I just take a business card, right? And then you just take the business card and you slide the business card right back in there like this, but you don't want to be hitting on top of that little part. So you don't want to be hitting on top of the bolt or the small one. You want to drop that down so you're bumped against that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slide this in there, and I'm going to touch the large bolt right there. Okay. That's what that does. It's going to give me, I'm going to do this. I'm touching that bolt. And then over here on the side of the card, I'm going to put a pencil line right in line with the door jamb. Right? Everything is locked where it needs to be. Business card slide in on the bolt, pencil line. That's the depth to the front edge of this right here. So now when I open this up, right here, I take this line that I made and I'm going to put it right in place where that strike plate goes. And right here is the depth of it. I'm going to put a pencil line there. And I'm going to do the same thing, put a pencil line on the bottom. And that tells me, again, where the front of this is supposed to be. So I know this is a bad angle, but that's how that works. And before, this one was actually a little bit loose, okay? Just a little bit. And one way for your door at home, it's not this small, right? You can just stand right in there. You can put your head, you can get right in front of it. But one way to do is put it where you think it needs to be, and then lay that card and see if it lines up with your line, with the line you made up here and down here. And lay that card right across the front of those. And is it also in line with this? Here, here, and here all need to be in line. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is, this was actually out of adjustment a little bit. I'm going to put a pencil line circle on there because this needs to move back. So right now there's actually a hole there from where it was before, here and here, and it's forward a little bit. So what do I do about that? If I try to put a screw in there, it's going to go right back in the same spot. So what I always do, there's different things you can do. They make little plastic type, little plastic plugs, little thing. They look like the shape of a screw. You can turn that in there. And then when you start a new hole right behind it, it's got something pressure to come up against. But another thing you can do is just take a piece of wood and just a utility knife. And I'm just gonna just cut off a piece like that. So I just made my own little wedges right there, and you can see that. And so now what I do is I take this little wedge and put it in that hole. Take another one and put it in that hole. Then I just grab a little hammer and tap them. And now break it off. Now that hole is filled and it's solid, okay? It's just a way to fill a hole. Another thing you can do is use something like I had some pictures here. Like on this one. This is actually on a hinge, for a hinge. but you can see this bottom picture. They're putting this plastic plug in that hole because the wood is all stripped. So put that in there. Another thing you can do is if you have a golf tee, put a golf tee in the hole and then just cut it off. And I'm going to come back to this actually because this is going to talk about a way to adjust a door that's sagging a little bit. So I filled those holes and then I put this where it needs to be. And then I'm going to take this screw. Put that in there and actually moved it back just a little bit. And you notice how tight it is. It's because the wood filled that hole. All right. So there's that one. Drop the screw here. Hope this is in your view all right. Okay, so now let's move it back, all snugged up. Put the door in there. And now you don't have to give it that extra push. Like I have to really, if I really force push it, it would do that, but then it's not going to line up above. Everything lines up good. And the other thing is if I had to, well, one thing is if you have a deadbolt, you're still good, but you still have the loose door and not a tight weather stripping on the outside. But if you had to really force it, push it really hard in order to get that second little one to drop in there, you're smashing that weather stripping down so tight on the outside that no one's going to be able to put anything in there. So. But again, why would you force it? You don't need to. You know that it's latched straight where it needs to be. All right. So that's how you get the strike plate at the right location. Again, all I did is put the card in there. Once everything was lined up where it needs to be, like the deadbolt, pencil line. That becomes the leading edge of the strike plate. So that's the leading edge of the strike plate right there. All right. So then it's the lock or the deadbolt. The deadbolt is the same thing. It just has some different parts. And what I'm going to do is remove these screws. Now these are really long screws. But changing this it's all the same. So you can see how long that screw is, and then it's fine threaded. See on the other side. And then I do the same thing. I hold them both sides with my thumb on one side and fingers on the other, and There you go. So here is the same thing. The deadbolt just comes apart both sides. And you'll see on this side, there's a slot. On this side, it's just that tab or that, that flat piece of metal there. And one just goes inside the other one. And that way, when this turns, it turns this part, the bolt of it. So you can see that in this, again, these are the same thing, 2 3/8, 2 3/4 back set, the same idea. But this one has instead of having that rectangle where you put the bolt through, it has that slot because the door handle, that shaft was square and this one is flat. So it turns back and forth. And pushes the bolt out. And that just comes out just that simple. Now, from our earlier mention of the 2 3/8 to 2 3/4, you can see that right there spinning. There's 2 3/8, there's 2 3/4. So again, you would open your package up and it's all the same parts, your screws and the bolt itself. And you just put the bolt in there. And if you look right at the top, right, it says top. So we want that to be up. So there that is again. Now, there's that flat part right there. It's got a little tilt, a little angle on it, on that. I don't know if you can see it or not because it's got a little bit of dust in it or foam from the foam core door. It just goes right through that. So you can see where it came through right there. And then this one again has that same slot in it, and you can bring that and then just line it up and then just turn this around to where it needs to be. But the holes for this will be on side to side. These will always be side to side, not up and down like the door handle is down here. So again, it's self-aligned. And then just snug a little bit, then the other side. And I'll snug them up. Now these you can actually, if you really reef on it and try to, well, I'm going to make this really tight. You can actually over tighten them and it will actually put a little bit of a drag on this. So you just take them down snug. Just not torque. There. So that's how you would change out a deadbolt. and that's how you would change out the handle. So actually, there's not a lot to it. I talked a lot. It took me maybe, I don't know, half hour all together. But if you just laid out the pieces, you know, even if it took you a couple hours and you were able to do it yourself, you would be able to. A DIY is awesome. You know, when we do something and it just gives us confidence that, wow, I can do that. I can do more. One thing, now I'll just add a couple what I think are helpful tips or advice is on the strike plate side right here. What I do is, well, for 20 years I was a contractor, so installed a lot of doors. And with home repair services now for 12 plus years and sharing that knowledge with others. So I hope you can benefit from it. But what I would always do is, you know, in this door jamb right here, obviously at your house in the wall, here's another 2x4. So what I would do is I would take, in place of those short screws that they have that just come through, they're 3/4 inches long. I would put a 2.5 inch or even a 3-inch long number 8 screw. And that way, if that screw is long, it goes all the way back over into the stud in the wall. And somewhere right here, I have a picture that kind of shows that a little bit. So right here, you can see that here's a door jamb, there's the strike plate, and then there's a stud in the wall. If you put longer screws in there, it goes in the stud of the wall. It is a lot more secure, okay? Because someone can't just hit that and just split just this part of the wood, or the screws get forced out. It goes back into the wall. All right, just a helpful tip. And anytime a door is installed, these are just some other tips now. Again, I'm going to spin this around so it's on the outside. I've seen many doors that they were installed, but the installer was not aware of an important part, and that is that you always use some good caulking. And when I say good caulking, to me, I'm not going to promote any given one. This just happens to be this type, but I look on the tube and see, does it say it has excellent adhesion or superior adhesion? It expands, it doesn't crack. Well, you know, they need this. To me, that's been always the go-to, and it's usually quite true. So the one thing that seems to be missing a lot is that across the bottom of the threshold right here, where it sits on whatever your toe kick board, which is underneath the front of the door outside, or if it comes down and sits on concrete, if there's concrete there, I see so many of them that they're not sealed across there. That is a place for moisture to get in there. That's a place for, you know, insects to crawl through, but moisture can get in there. You know, the air can flow up underneath there. Even though it's insulated around it, air can get underneath of it or on the corners. So it's important to seal that. You can get a colored type caulking that matches your trim or whatever's down here, or if it's on cement, you can actually get caulking that is it's concrete, actually, crack caulking. It's really good stuff. A lot of them, you know, each one has their own name, but it's that way it would match the color of the cement. So different things you can put there. Another really important spot is so this is where I was talking about underneath the door, along the bottom of that threshold, wherever it rests. The other spot is in this corner right here, both of those corners on top of the threshold. So you can see that one is being caulked right there. If you don't do this, then very likely, if you're unless you have a covered porch over your door area, that this over here is going to happen. The wood down low is going to rot. The reason why it does that is because the aluminum threshold goes underneath that 1/2 inch, goes underneath there. So any moisture that sits on that aluminum threshold can go underneath there, wick underneath of that wood, the door jamb. And what it does is the door jamb, since it's wood and it's the end grain, starts wicking up the moisture, just like a wick in a kerosene lamp, or one of those type of lamps. The moisture draws up. You've got it all painted on the outside, everything looks good, but it's rotting from the inside out. So very, very important to caulk right there to seal that off. I've seen many doors that, they look beautiful doors, and look down there and it's already started to rot away. They do make some doors now, door frames that have a composite material in the bottom 6 to 8 inches, or some of them, all of them. But still, definitely you want to do that. So I don't know if you can see that right here, but right here you can see that this threshold goes underneath of there. So that right there is what I'm talking about, that space right there. Moisture underneath there, and it just works its way up, just like a wick. All right, very important. The other thing I wanted to share with you about the door is that this threshold right here, if you have a gap underneath your door, that most of these thresholds on an entry door, this type of entry door, has an adjustable threshold. And actually what happens is you can actually turn, there are screws. If you look down at your threshold and you see screws on there like that, you can see those screws or not, but there are screws in there. That means that it's adjustable, and you can just back these out, and what it does, it raises it. You turn it in and it pushes it down. So if it's dragging, turn it in. If it's got a gap underneath it, back it out and it'll lift it up. Now I happen to have one here so I can show you an end view of it, hopefully. And if you look at this, you can see, one, that it has the adjustable screws in it. And then if you look at the makeup of this, here's the threshold all across here, but this part of it right here is like a U, right? So if I put a screwdriver in there, in that screw slot, I'm hoping that you'll be able to capture this, but if I back out, you can actually see that piece coming up. So now you can see there's actually that it has lifted. And then if I turn it in, maybe it's rubbing and it's too high, you can just turn this part in. All right, so they are adjustable. So they're adjustable, and they're also, typically when they go in and out of door, I think in the whole design of these, it was with the thought that people don't stand on this, because you don't want to push it back down. You just step over your threshold. So, and that's an adjustable part. The other thing is that maybe you have bad weather stripping on the outside. So this weather stripping that comes down the side, maybe it's bad. You have air rolling through there or whatever. Just keep in mind that all of this is replaceable. You can get go to the hardware. You can go to most any place that sells this kind of stuff. The big box stores, hardwares. I always like to think also just support our big box stores. Well, our hardwares too. But that you can get a weather stripping kit, which is a short one and 2 long ones, right? So you have a short one for across the top and then down both sides. And there is actually a groove in that. So here's a piece of this frame, and you can see that. So here's that weather stripping right there. And then you can see that groove that it goes back in. I can actually take this weather stripping and give it a steady tug and peel that weather stripping out of there, right? And you go right down the door. Once I got it going, I can just pull the whole thing out like that, right? So now there's no weather stripping. So you've bought a weather stripping kit like this, and all you do is start it again at the top and just take your fingers and squeeze it and push it right back in there. So now you just replace the weather stripping and stop the cold air from coming in. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that too much longer, right? I always think we get to the end of February, we're closer to spring than we are everything else that we passed. So yeah, you can take them out. You can see that, but I can come over here. Sorry about that, and peel this piece right out. Cut another one to size and put it back in all the way around it. All right, so that's a lot of little bits and pieces of your steel entry door, fiberglass entry door, wood door, whatever door you have. Some of them have different features, but you can always change these handles. It's not too bad. Pretty simple task. And I hope this was helpful. So I'll share just a little bit with you about home repair services. We're a nonprofit organization here in Grand Rapids and have been in existence for, this is the 41st year. And it's about bringing different kinds of resources together to help homeowners, help people be able to fix things in their home. We have a repair side of our program, or a repair program, that for families that are, at certain income levels, they would be able to potentially qualify for some help in repairs for health, safety, and security, emergency and critical type repairs. So, and then the other part is about empowering, we call it self-help, and it's empowering families and homeowners and anyone with skill sets on how to address things in their home. I think about it, and when I was in school, I took all the trades and everything, but there wasn't really, we all had that idea of getting getting out of school, going to college, getting a job, getting our own place, and a lot to go with it. But there wasn't ever really anything about just maintaining that place once we do get it. So what we try to do here at Home Repair Services is bring all that information to you. Like I said earlier, every Saturday, once this COVID spell has been able to pass it, then we, just like every place else, we hope to open our classroom back up and have free classes on Saturdays, and the topics are the sky's the limit, and it's all hands-on. So when you're in our classes, you're actually doing things. So so thanks so much for watching the video, streaming with us, and thanks KDL.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited for this COVID stuff to be over too, but I certainly learned quite a bit, and I hope you watching at home did too, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.